evening. Thank you very much, viewers, and we welcome you to a special program here on QTV along the Karaba Avenue. We are discussing a very important topic, and I'm joined by National Assembly members. So the topic of discussion tonight, we will right away go to it. It's a sensitization on non-violence and advocacy to contribute to electoral security in the Gambia. So these are, the National Assembly is one of the most important organs of the state, apart from having the other organs, that is the executive, the judiciary. The National Assembly also performs very important functions that contribute towards development in the country. So I'm joined by representatives in that very important organ of the state. On my right-hand side is Honorable Madi Sise. He's the National Assembly member for Serekunda. And on my immediate left, Madi Sise, National Assembly member for Serekunda West. Yes, you are right. And we are also joined by Honorable Alhaji Babu Sise. He's the National Assembly member for Sabah Sanjal. And on my left, the last one is Honorable Almami Jiba. He's the National Assembly member for Foni Councillor. These are the National Assembly members who are part of this panel of discussion on non-violence and advocacy to contribute to electoral security in the Gambia. So I will start with Honorable Madi Sise. When we talk about non-violence, what role do you think a National Assembly member we've just witnessed the election, the parliamentary election which concluded, and now that the National Assembly member is in operation from the campaign processes to the election, what role did you play in ensuring that there is non-violence in the advocacy for peace?
Thank you very much. As a candidate at the time, the only way that you could unify and make sure that there is non-violence is to start with yourself. Your speeches have to be civil, non-violence, and you have to be sending clear messages and practically show to the people that it is a competition for a particular position, and naturally only one person will have to win. And all the other competitors together have the constituency at heart, so it shouldn't be one that is hostile, because we know one will win, and then you have to educate your electorate as well and your supporters, because the party supporters also have a key role to play towards non-violence, but the candidate must lead. If the candidate's messages, tunes are in civil nature and it's non-violence, definitely the followers will follow, and then as a result, even if the two camps meet at certain cross point, which has happened several times during my campaign, but we will peacefully joke and then continue on our campaign trail. I can fully remember at a point where I meet with one of my competitors along the Karaba Avenue, and we all got off our vehicles and hug one another and pass. So that kind of messages are practical. Those are the things that we need as candidates, and it will trickle down to the supporters, and as a result, we'll have a non-violence elections. This is one way that I have conducted myself during the last parliamentary elections.
Absolutely. My understanding is that peace must not only be preached, but demonstrated.
Very well.
And at that stage, that was what you did as a candidate for Serekunda West.
Yep.
You are reminded that this program is supported by the EU in collaboration with WANEP, and it was facilitated by the Coalition of Civil Society on Election and Caritas. Thank you for joining us. Honorable, we've had the role the National Assembly member for Serekunda West has played during the campaign period. What was your contribution?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me. And I will also thank the Coalition of CSO and also WANEP for having this program successful. Definitely is a very important topic, and the process has to continue because there is no possibility of developing a nation without peace. We all understand that during elections, during campaign, people tend to be violent sometimes, but in my constituency, we definitely had a very successful campaign, and this is because we understand that the constituency belongs to all of us, and we are all related one way or the other. And well before elections, we used to do a lot together, and there is no point that we should involve ourselves in violence, because election comes and goes, and we stay in our constituencies and continue with our activities. We intermarried, and we do a lot of social activities together. And for that being the case, this is only one activity that comes at a time, and it goes. So the others are there that we have to also forge ahead with. So I don't see any case that we should involve ourselves in such. And one of the things that we used to always tell our campaign team, that is well before we depart, we sensitize them, we tell them that, definitely we are going in for this, but we are not enemies. In politics, we always say there is no permanent enemy, there is no permanent friend. So we all have to understand we have one family, and there is only one National Assembly, and also there is only one seat of National Assembly for Sabasanjal in that building. So there is no case, there is no possibility that we can have two winning candidates. So whatsoever be the case, one must win and the others must lose. But we all have to work together, and then we preach for peace. There, like my honorable colleague just mentioned, there was this case. One of my opponents was also having a meeting in my area and in my own village. I went there, attended his meeting, and in fact it was very peaceful, and people were very happy to see us together. I was sitting next to him when he was even giving his speech, and people really embraced that. And that is the only way we can show our people, our followers, our supporters, our fans, that we are preaching peace. And if they see two opponents attending each other's campaign meetings, I think that's a very good sample to preach peace. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Honorable, it's the same question. What was your advocacy messages during the campaign period to ensure that it is non-violence?
Thank you very much, and I thank my colleagues and the moderator and also the co-sponsors for this magnificent program. And I believe this is one of programs that will yield and also be very educative. My main approach in my constituency councillor, I belong to an area where I could say violence in the peak period of election was emanating from the southern part of Casamance. This has triggered the hopes and the minds of people, and they lose confidence in governance, lose confidence in the territorial integrity. But what I did was to put it to them that it is not a Gambian war. It is another path. Happenings that were emanating from the other end, we can ignore it, maintain our own status quo. Whereby I had a lot of opponents, about 5, that we all stood to fight for a seat. But I would tell them the four corners of Councillor is owned by the Councillor people. In any meeting that I go, I first emphasize that I'm not a politician, but I came to change the odds that we think will unify the people of Councillor, irrespective of your belief or whatever area that we belong to. So in that regard, this were the main objective that I was doing, pushing the ideas of that change of youthful age to cement and also, change the horizon of thinking. That politics was maybe even termed as one part thing, but it is something that any message that you offer against a person, or I was also being a person where I discredit any message that will assassinate characters of people. Even I had opponents talking about it, I will make sure to tell my supporters, insults, raining, it's not the solution. but give what is best for them, educate them, put the young ones to know that it is a constitutional right for everybody to seek for that particular position. But in seeking for that particular position, you have to follow the courtesy, your communication should words, ideally trying to show that unification of message that you cross will either better you today or tomorrow. So these were the core mandate that I'm using in my end as councillor. And I was also trying to unify within tribal sets to accommodate that belief that this is a councillor, it's not a tribe. So I will also represent councillor, not a tribe. So unilaterally, all tribes within the councillor have seen that message that he is talking to make sure we unify that peace. And in any conflict that you see, there must be causes that will cause conflict. Either one, by messages or information spreading, audios, or particularly even remove audios, trying to debunk any message that will make sure it will now threaten the peace and stability, and it will also threaten the peace and stability of my region. In advocacy, building the grounds of traditionally, trying to see. And I will even quote the soul names that are in councillor, the tribes that are in councillor, the way they intermarry, the way they connive together to see that change. So these were the moods that I was trying to work on to see that unification and a better off. Then it has translated to great achievements that I've seen in my region, and the people of councillor. And it could also boil towards a saying that seats of parliamentarians are of a period. So if you use, or you're about to use, or use a message against that, it will either haunt you or haunt the society or the area that you belong to. So in sort of, it was a moment that I think, I personally had a leading role to maintain the status quo of peace.
Thank you very much.
In building the interests of my constituency.
Thank you very much. Both of them and the three of you all spoke very significantly on the role that you played during the electoral campaign. But sometimes the problem is does not only emanate or doesn't emanate from politicians, but those that follow them. One way or the other, maybe due to lack of civic awareness, to understand what election means, its importance, and their duties, their responsibilities, the rights entitled to them by the Constitution. He has explained how he worked on the mindset, the psychological mindset of the people to ensure that there is non-violence. Without peace, there wouldn't be electoral security. How do you work on the psychological mindset of people that divide and contribute towards violence in the country, especially during elections?
Thank you very much. One thing, if you look at Gambia, since 1962, Gambians have been going to the polls. As a result, you look at the history of our electoral processes from 1962 to the last one, 2022. You can hardly pick on any violence during elections and campaigns. Very few, isolated few. So naturally, Gambians are peaceful in nature. And therefore, our elections are not marred with violence. And I think that credit will have to go to the politicians themselves, because yes, the followers can be sentimental, but the lead person in those in that period is the candidates and the politicians. So if they are peaceful, they themselves, they are non-violent, and they are sending the same message as my colleagues, all of them spoke about, obviously our elections will always go peaceful. And that is what has been going on. For Serekunda West, I can't remember which of the elections you have violence. And even across the country, like I said, it goes the same. So violence is not an issue for Gambia, but we cannot take things for granted. We have to cement that peaceful nature of Gambians and be civil, like I said in our speeches, and be sending peaceful messages and act peacefully ourselves as politicians. If we do that, we will be able to make our followers follow us, because many a time supporters really look onto the candidates. If you are non-violent and you are peaceful, you can always calm your people down. But if you yourself in nature, you are not peaceful, then obviously it will be very difficult to really control any violence, or it could be a very comfortable zone for violence to spark off. So it all boils down to the candidates themselves, that we have to be civil in the way we talk.
So you are right in a sense that we are a peaceful country.
Very well.
And electoral violence is not unique to the Gambia in your statement.
Yeah.
But we had some comments that potentially can break that peace in this country. I wouldn't name parties, I wouldn't name individuals, but it's written all over the walls for us to see that the messages that emanated from supporters, sometimes even some candidates, were not really directly contributing towards guarding the peaceful nature of the country, especially during the time of election. Do you condemn, for instance, and disassociate yourself with comments, tribal comments, or bigotry, or hate speech?
You're perfectly correct. I have just drawn our attention to the past history from '62 to date, that we are a country that really do not have this electoral violence, but we have them in isolated places. But to speak of the last one, yes, if you come to utterances, because, you know, society also changes, it's very dynamic. In the '60s, there were no social media and things like that, but in the recent, from the recent elections, we've seen the tribal insults, religious insults, attacking, you know, political party leaders. Of course, it was very tense, but thank God, I think politicians themselves, all of us candidates who vied for it, never contributed and subscribed to that. We've always been condemning them. If, as candidates, we subscribe to those tribal insults and religious insults and attacks on, you know, various political leaders, obviously the country can go into flame easily. That's why I said it all boils down to us, the candidates. Not only the winners, I'm talking, even as a candidate, I have five more candidates contested with me. So all of us played a very vital role to make sure that we maintain peace in Serekunda West, and that is the same way across the country. That is what we should continue to do, because society has changed. Social media has really changed the dynamics of this politics in the Gambia. Especially if you come to these insults. Like I said, in the '60s, no, there was no messages that can multiply quickly across the country, but now we've seen them. Especially with the advent of technology, social media, WhatsApp, Facebook. Yeah. It was terrible, it was terrible, so many tribal insults, religious, you know, attacks here and there. But I think all of us have been condemning those utterances, and Allah has helped us. We've gone through the elections really peacefully. So we must continue to nurture that peaceful nature of our elections and our coexistence in the country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madi Sise. He's the National Assembly member for Serekunda West. Honorable Sise, we have two Honorable Sises here. Yes. One is representing Serekunda West and the other one is representing Sabasanjal, and his name is Honorable Alhaji Babu Sise. Yeah.
He went to make it, I didn't.
Alhaj. Nice. Alhaj. So, during election, we hear all sorts of messages coming. It might not represent the interests or the commitment or the intention of politicians. Ultimately, the expectation is that irrespective of the manifestos we have, irrespective of the political parties we belong, or wherever we come from, we're all you know, campaigning to serve the country for our collective development. Nobody comes to you know, with the intention of breaking the peace in this country. But sometimes the messages coming from the supporters, out of maybe lack of understanding of what election is, their duties, their rights and responsibilities as citizens, it boils down to lack of civic awareness. How do you work on the mindset of electorate, particularly your supporters, to ensure that really the peace of this country is guarded?
Yeah, I think that is the most important part of it, because I can say most of the candidates will not involve themselves in violence. Sometimes it is coming from the part of the supporters who would take it in another way around. But as I always say, he who pays for the piper dance to the tune. And I always try to disassociate myself with anybody or any supporter who tries to be violent or who tries to use some foul words against my opponents. Because I think, as Honorable Cisse just mentioned, Gambia is a peaceful country, and that is why we are called the Smiling Coast of Africa. And this should not be only a name that we call ourselves, but it should be something that we try to demonstrate, because the whole world is watching us. During elections, we have observers coming from different countries to come and see what is happening on the ground. But I think it is very important if we try to show to our supporters that definitely, look, this is elections. We all have the right to be voted for, and we have the right to vote for others as well. My opponent is not my enemy. We all have our constituencies at heart. He has his own programs and I have my own programs. Go out there and tell them your manifesto and not to use any foul word. I think this is the most important thing, because people would be seeing at you, and remember, you are looking for a particular position and you want to be elected. If people are seeing violence in you or in any of your members, they will tend to be afraid of voting you into office, because the peaceful nation we have, the most developed country we will have in this world. And it is very important we sensitize our people. I can see most of these social medias like Facebook, WhatsApp, these are one of the agents of, these audios that are coming, which are very violent. But like if you go to provincial areas, like in my constituency, most of them don't use Facebook.
Salon.
Yes, they don't even have. Most of them don't have Facebook accounts. Most of them don't use WhatsApp. So obviously, the only way out you can give your information is when you go to them and when you have meetings with them.
Thank you.
So, but like I will encourage politicians to discourage and disassociate themselves with anybody who is using social media to incite violence, which might lead to flaming this country into fire.
Thank you very much. I think Honorable Jiba has already hit it on the nail on what he would do during the electoral campaign in the parliamentary elections. What I want you to tell me, because without peace, significantly, our National Assembly members cannot do their work. Without the peace, all the organs of government cannot function. The country will be brought down to its knees, and may God forbid, that is not for the best interest of all of us. Now, post-election, the country, due to politics, that's natural, is deeply polarized, somehow divided, because of certain reasons. What are we doing? What are you doing as National Assembly members now that the election has gone? Do you have any plans to go back to your constituencies and talk to them to ensure that we bring the country together, for us to be united? Because without any unity, there is division. With division, the country peace wouldn't be the case. So what are we doing now?
Thank you very much. What's the name again?
Oh, Lamin Choi.
Choi.
Yes.
It's a great thing, and I think as representatives, after the election or the electoral process, you owe it to yourself and your constituency to be a tool of peace preaching, to be a tool of peace harvesting, to be a piece of peace advocacy. A day that I was announced, a day or two after the election, I invited, it was Ramadan, by the iftar, that everybody you are invited. My first message that I've echoed is, election is finished. That guy who voted for me and the guy who didn't vote, to me, they are all equal. And I'm representing councillor, not representing my region or area or my compound or a tribal set. I did this 2 weeks later. I took it to myself that my promise that I've did in campaign is to make sure I visit the environment that I am in terms of security. because it was a tough time, most of Fonyi in Kansala per se. You know, what I did first was I went around all the installation, military installation, the police, the NIA, the immigrations, you know, to talk to them, the fire services in my area, government institutions, that I am here and I'm your partner in development, partner in maintaining peace, partner in making sure that Kansala is you and me. If it is destroyed, it's you. And I will tell them that I'm available, and you are also available. Let's involve to make sure we build that gap, to make sure our people have that confidence. A year, how to call it, after that 2 weeks, you know, I reaffirm myself again, you know, whereby I also, just of last Wednesday, because what I'm doing is to make sure, put it to them, that electoral cycle has a period. But the development work and the maintenance of peace is dead and alive. So when they knew that idea, I was telling them that I will be coming to you, engaging on a more serious note to see that peace will reign in my area. Before rainy season, I met them. Then 2 or 3 rainy drops of rain. Just last Wednesday, I went with the KRF, Key Reinforcement Force, Reaction Force in Kanilai, the soldiers, because I had that rapport with them. When I won, I had built that confidence in security status quo in the area, that to make sure they are part of us and they should involve in daily activities to make sure peace reigns in my constituency. So I involved in them in what we call a confidence building tour. You know, I went within the borderline, the belt of the border, all villages.
Thank you very much.
Informed them that I am your representative. What I'm here for is peace. And I'm also advocating, in as much as we have peace, but we should also go back to land and make sure whatever we're going to grow now is us, and in that status we will change. Because the fear was, you know, most of them went, 75, 80% have returned. But they had a difficulty that peace may not come. They had messages in social media, you know, in 2 weeks' time, things will start, in 3 weeks' time, or after this. So I said, hey, I think it's my onus.
So now the situation is calm.
Yeah,
now.
the situation is fully calm.
They've gone back to the land.
They've gone back to the area.
They are
normal, but most of them were not prepared to farm. So I used that moment and said, I am going to tell you that be in peace, that these are our own brothers.
Absolutely. And
sisters in uniform. I went with them. You know, they were armed. I was also protected, village to village, locality to locality.
Fantastic.
Inform them that the peace and tranquility of the country will not be compromised with this man and me and the government.
Thank you very much.
So these were articulated aspects that today I can vividly inform you that the confidence is there. You know, lands that we are not even plowed back now, people are entering into the farm. So more or less was to build that confidence. It is you. You have to be with them. Not sending messages, but be with them, you know, and also participate actively in making sure you sensitize them. And whatever thing that you think will jeopardize the peace and tranquility, be a partner to debunk and involve fully to make sure they see that you are not in that line, but you are in the line to maintain that peace. So this was what I was doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Quite interesting comments there by the Honorable Member Jiba, and he's a representative of Fonyi Kansala. We are talking about peace advocacy, that is non-violence and advocacy to contribute to electoral security in the Gambia. These are National Assembly members who just emerged from the parliamentary elections. Now they have begun work. The committees are on, trying to hold government to account. That is the oversight function effectively working. I've asked a question. After the election, our constituencies somehow, in one way or the other, is left deeply polarized and somehow divided. What do you play? What role do you play as a National Assembly member to get us united for peace?
I would not agree with you on that point. And I cannot speak for the entire country, but I know as far as Serekunda West is concerned, there is no division anymore. Like my honorable friend said, elections are over now. What we need to know now is the post-elections. What are we going to do to maintain the peace? Because
so your constituency is not polarized, it's not divided?
There is not divided, there is no push and pull, elections are over, we're all back into our own cells, and life is going on. But we need to
But that's not enough. There is more work to be done.
We need to nurture the peace. And like I have said not long time ago, I was invited by the Gambia Armed Forces to deliver a paper on peace and security as a prerequisite for national development when they are the Senegalese visiting army. My take on it is we cannot have any development when there is no peace. And peace is not only in the absence of war. Peace is in the absence of conflict. And we have conflict within ourselves. We have conflict even within our homes. We sometimes have conflict within our own personalities. So we need to nurture that peace. And then it is the sole responsibility of everyone to make sure that there is peace in the country. Citizens must be law-abiding. That's why we have the laws in place. The laws help us to make sure that there is peace. Because if I overpowered you and just come to your house, knock you, take your properties, and nothing happens, that will lead to violence. But that's why we have the law. So the law says don't do that. So we need to be law-abiding, we need to be accommodative, and we need to be talking peace, and we need to act peacefully. And that's a responsibility for every citizen in this country. Particularly in the Selectable constituency.
Thank you.
And once we are able to do that, peace will continue. But if we are not law-abiding, it can really create problems. Because where my right stops is where your right begins. So I have to respect that. And then, but whenever we have come wanting, then we have institutions that are responsible to maintain that. That is the police, and the army. Army for an outside aggression, but the police for internal security. So before we get to that, we need to respect the law, be law-abiding. But then if for some reason you crossed your law, you are wanted by law, then the police also should judiciously do their job. Because the police can also create tension and lead to violence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we will now switch to our local languages. All of you can speak in different languages. I think Honorable Jiba can communicate to our relatives, the Jolas.
Yeah.
We'll also have you to speak to the people of Salom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speak to the people of Salom.
And when he speaks in Jola, he speaks to all of our constituencies. And he speaks in Wolof, he's speaking to all of my constituencies. I speak in Mandinka.
He's also the same.
Yeah,
Honorable, laajte nañ la ay questions. Tey nag moom lu ñoo waxtaanee moo nekk naka la ñoo mën a contribuer ñu war a mën a waxtaan si suñu biir ba nga xam ne jàmm am na si time election. So loolu nag nekk na loo xam ne waxtaan bu mag moo ko war a mën a indi ñu toog ñu waxtaan. So léegi lu ñu dese na bariwut so xam naa ne honorable mën nga summarize rek si wolof lu ñu jot a waxagum da nga ko summarize nag because ñu ngi dese around 8 minutes.
waaw jërëjëf comme maa ngi nuyu ñi ñu fi dalal di nuyu ñuy seetaan tam di wax ne tey li ñu fi indi rek mooy waxtaanee jàmm la jàmm balaa élection jàmm ginnaaw élection comme ni ko fi suma naataango yi waxee rek mooy élection dafa ñëw dem li fee des mooy ñun ñoo fee nekkaat pour jëmale réew mi ci kanam te yokkute réew mi du mun a dem ginnaaw jàmm su foog jàmm am pour réew mi mun a dem si kanam moo tax bi nga gisee ne bañ saanee carte ba pare ba kenn ñu wax ne diw gañe na ngay gis ñenn ci député yi di demaat si seen gox yi waxaat ak nit ñi wan leen na leen ku ma sànniloo nag ku ma sànnilut ay amut kii pël la wala joola wala olof wala soose wala làkk bu nit munti nekk loolu amut ñu wala kii christian la wala kii muslim la li am solo mooy Gambia su ko defee nañ gis Gambia gis suñu réew mi xam ne ñoo bokk ndey bokk baay ñu jàppalante ci arnam gu mu munti nekk rek pour mun a yóbbu réew mi ci kanam lii lañ nekk di waxtaan wi soo waxtaan nañ fi tamit naka la ñoo def ñun ñi nga xam ne ñoo nekk jiite li nga xam ne mooy politique bi naka la ñoo def ba dimbale nit ñi di wax ak nit ñi ba jàmm jooju mun a sax so comme ni ko honorablement di waxee yenn saa yi ngay dem campagne te ki nga xamante ne nii sa naataango la ci politique yéen a bokk di xëccoo benn toogu bi ngeen wàcce kenn ku ci nekk jox sa morom loxo ngeen xog nuy wante saafu wante ñeneen ñi nga xam ne ñoo leen topp si seen gannaaw yéeg si seeni oto gis loolu dinañ mën a roy loolu si yéen su ko defee da ngaa gis ne loolu li moo jàngale rek mooy jàmm ci lañ lépp xaj te toogu bi benn la kenn see toog te ki fay toog toogalut fa boppam toogalut fa familim toogalut fa dëkkam waaye tund wala fa toogal soo faa toogal nag tund wi da nga war a jël nga accumuler ñëpp soo mooy ku nekk ak koo xamante ne sànnil na la wala sànnilul la ñëpp ngay jël boole leen ñu nekk benn bokkaat ndey bokka bàyyi te xam ne ñu ni neen la ñooy demalante ngénte ñooy demalante dëj ñooy demalante céet ñooy demalante lu nekk ñooy demalante soo kon li gën a am solo rek mooy nañ di wax jàmm di dox jàmm te di moytu tam social media bi WhatsApp Facebook bu fa dugal voice message boo xam ne su ko nit déggee mun naa taal safara ci réew mi yooyu yëpp ñu koy oytu ba pare di ko dàq ba pare fu ñoo dem lu ñoo wax rek na nekk luy jàngale jàmm ak luy yóbbu réew mi ci kanam.
jërëjëf honorable.
Thank you very much. Mukanum jomana safero ni saf honorable Cissé si yabare di ome di po kamana mu kasana la banganam de QTV wana mi kamika ko mi di mukana me kapoya ko munuju ka me masumam di wax wanuma mi pamunguru wax we ka gulor ya ko baje de mafam no joke mame me kamika ko lele tan ko jomi to mi janding election e ring bunu no mayora munuju ka me man masumam di kapoya ke mafam ya ko fitne wonde bajo babe no wonde jow ande ko la puto ja pop na election e wujum pop bo ana poro ngon no nokor ni regretade bukan nak on kammi waymi ngene kankana jojena bukan ni jokume kamika ke pake di ula tu wana sana wanto wawara no jowemi kapoya ke mafam di ko suma andon kayrayde ujum jamunu tikyo yongo ne rammene kabaka ke mafam kabaka ke constituency ya kabaka ke sidula sanama mi san aw o mi mo jokume mo sumum de pake de mo jaw de kan foni kankan dulani mami ka gulo ko bajo bo bar ka gulo le barola bare diminda bajon di wa bajom o jimmi waymi bunu won no juma mun won na poyora no won no juka me han kurima de ko ragde ko jel nyamani kane waymi defu juma fumbom fe national assembly la ko funya sa waymi hande ko jeli injere ko support ko mo kat inje madama inje ko rege wanto waymi e kanende jaani sa place de kan oto wanto waymi aw fan ajuma kuroro mun won no jeetum furima de bo kanak ka poyde ko bajo ko suma de ko bajo no juka ma me e ka suma ko bayade ma fa ume awdi inje kayra la to yemme bare ka guloro po ko bayo jaar la to won la kam won juma fu jum fana man won rambe no ra ka jom oto mo fa ume wa emmi aw a politicien rag bo kana kiya furima fana jembe ka puri nak kam furim fana man ka jojena bu kan furima fana jembe ka puri nak kam furima fana man fo le fu wollen an le fu wolen ku tiweyte bu kana man ko wono ken bar wona sono jembe ka sankena kan furim fana man a ka jojen bu kan o nampen bu kan anu miken bu kan anu wona sono jembe kane o kandi luwai annum po no kan aribena annu kana jo janabu kan aw juma def juma fu rek nu juk wan sonu mamum be kane pan jaw annu ka safara ke anaw di anaw aw arungaw aw wanu jum muju jen bukana gumko barula isibla stu di mukanam tu oto njomana sale bukana ne regume wala tu juma def jum fe kayra no poya kayra no mika kayra anu bo safara kayra no kenu ma kurima kana mi pan kuwono nguru kalonga na kolela njomana safero ne salomu tu.
Thank you very much. Honorable summarize.
Baraka bake honorable Nyasi, baraka honorable Jiva. Kadanya sewo bati ba na Cairo ko kachaja. Bari jube lal sa jube nende jube honorable Sisi jube honorable Jiva jube. Tol be mot menalon ko mantre political party kilim and political idea kilim so but I feel nyambe kacha so lafta mini yalon ko yentel noma ye krantol damma yalon ko ya fa nyame dom siramu kilinadi mo jamala kanyini bar mbenga karo don ngani en siran na bankole serekunda wes mo lulle ani fo woro bar habbe lafta serekunda wes la kayrol the same with honorable Jibana amonyol fana so odo me même fula carte fay la wala nyunti ko alinga kayro fo nga bara Cairo la nga Cairo nga ne ñoy be programme min ya sponsor be temple be jala men kada EUT ani one evening Caritas kadu ñu fenni men nga kumata baake so ngal be tendu ngal jey Allah wato men aliata ka jubi ala barka baake.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much for the panelists, Honorable National Assembly members, representing different constituencies. And that does it, and that's the end of the program. This program was brought to you by the EU in collaboration with the Civil Society Coalition on Nonviolence and Caritas. So yes, it's a support from the EU in collaboration with the UNEP and facilitated by Caritas and the Civil Society Coalition on Elections. We thank you very much for joining this program, and we encourage you to promote peace for development, peace for our well-being, peace for all of us. Thank you very much. Goodbye.